post-COVID world is very much a very different world from the pre-COVID world. It's not just back to normal, it is a new normal that we are talking about. There is this huge emphasis now for organizations and people leaders to basically be able to plan ways in which they can really invest more smartly in productive tools, strategies, and ways to make people feel engaged.
We have seen that around 60% plus CXOs have expressed prioritization of building organization capabilities within the org.
We have a strong mentorship and coaching program in place where anyone can sign up for a coaching program or mentorship program from leaders to understand what are some of the key competencies and capabilities that will enable them to succeed in their roles and in the roles after that, right?
Our report, our findings say that agility plus experience, both combined, can give you up to 2x returns, right? And we have seen that CXOs, on a whopping 78%, people believe in that in today's context.
There is a fundamental need for the HR team to be ready for any type of technology that we are going to adopt, but also the greater question about what does the business want to achieve.
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of our special interview series, HR Revolution Perspectives 2023 Experts Take, presented by People Matters in association with Darwinbox. I'm your host, Pallavi. Through these exclusive conversations, we sit down with top CHROs and thinking minds from the people and work landscape across Asia and break down the important talent trends across India and APAC. This series builds on insights from the HR Revolution Perspectives 2023 Power and Evolve Research Study, which is one of the largest workplace transformation studies in Asia. The findings of this research study paint an in-depth picture of what companies and employees demand today through responses gathered from over 2,000 HR practitioners and 100 plus employees. For today's interaction, I'm happy to invite Alex Png, Chief People Officer, Intrepid Group Asia. Brand builder, people developer, and tech adopter are some of the roles that Alex loves to live and breathe in. He has 10 plus years of HR expertise, marketing and operations experience spanning the tech, e-commerce, manufacturing, aviation, transportation, venture partnerships, telcos, and digital payments industries across both Fortune 500 companies and smaller scale startups. Alex is always looking at new and interesting ways to grow himself alongside the business. Thank you for joining, Alex.
Thank you for having me. Really glad to be here.
To navigate this conversation, we have with us today Sriram Nedaguri, Head Client Solutions and Advisory, SCA Darwinbox, an MBA from IIT Kharagpur. Sriram has more than 14 years of experience in HR, business partnering, HCM consulting, and coding. He's a risk taker, has a flair for technology, and is always keen on simplifying things with technology. He also boasts of strong relationship management and problem-solving skills. He thrives by creating impact in the areas of solutioning and advisory in HR digital transformation stories. Thank you so much for your time to be part of the series and agreeing to share your insights and your learnings with us.
Thanks so much, Pallavi.
I will now be handing over the mic to you, Sriram, for a deep dive into the insights of this report and what it means for the work landscape. So it's over to you.
Thanks so much, Pallavi. Thank you. Alex, pleasure to meet you over here. And it's very interesting that, to see, in terms of how you have built Intrepid as an organization, and also have been following you on some of articles as well. So here we are starting off with one of the, if you look at the HR perspectives research, which we have done from Darwinbox standpoint, it is the scale has been phenomenal. We are looking at around 1,200 plus organizations taking part. And if I look at summing up all the workforce around those 1,200 employees, it could be, the size could be as big as Singapore. That is the volume we're talking about. And in terms of looking at the contribution of the revenues of these all organizations could be, if I sum up, it could be as big as the GDP of Japan. So that is some numbers on the study. But here today, I'd like to take this conversation by exploring and mostly it's a joint exploration with you in terms of some of the key questions that we are looking at, and we'll take it organically. But but one of the first questions is in this current situation. I mean, we've been through COVID phase, and we're also almost in the era of hybrid workplace. We are looking at organizations spanning or growing beyond just one country, beyond one country, or beyond geographies. So, in this context, how do you look at the macroeconomic landscape, and in terms of your growth, your company's growth as such, how do you look at the macroeconomic factors, as well as especially from the Southeast Asia region? Because if you look at majority of the businesses you are right now within this region, Southeast Asia. So like to understand about, and also sort of start from how do you interpret, how do you envisage some of this trends, and more importantly, we all speak about profitability, and profitability being is even more overspoken after in the recent years. So where do you see also your company being more profitable and looking at these macroeconomic trends?
Right. Thank you so much for that preamble, and for really setting the stage up for some really relevant questions that sort of really occupy our mind space for leaders in Southeast Asia, especially in this regions around. And before everything, thank you for hosting and for driving this conversation. My pleasure as well to be able to talk to you about this. To your point on the kind of like macroeconomic trends that are really pervading this space in Southeast Asia of late, I think we are very clear that a post-COVID world is very much a very different world from the pre-COVID world. It's not just back to normal, it is a new normal that we are talking about, right? And it's a space whereby I think not just people as a whole, as employees, but organizations, entire organizations and economies have been awakened to the idea rather, of the fact that it's important for us to embrace a different way to work with each other. So that actually bleeds into different ways in which businesses conduct itself, including such things as making sure that we always have like a contingency plan or business continuity plan built into how we operate. So I think that's how one of the things that sort of came out from this entire episode or this pandemic is in that sense that we have a clear need to do business continuity planning, to do succession planning, and to be able to embrace flexi work arrangements and be able to drive a lot of like empowerment-led decisions across different organizations. All this really segue very neatly into the whole zeitgeist drive to make sure that organizations are profitable now. I think the march towards profitability is something that is not new to us. It was starting to actually take center stage right before the pandemic. There was a big push for tech startups and a lot of different MNCs that were dabbling in different types of like startup ventures, incubating new ideas to see to challenge them to see how best they can actually be able to become profitable, not at the expense of like just achieving new growth, but without considering the bottom line, right? So I think investors have also been able to signal that very clearly in the recent 1 to 1.5 years whereby there's this funding winter, and a lot of organizations are starting to tighten the belts and look at how best they can drive productivity. And in light of all this, right, I think there is this huge emphasis now for organizations and people leaders to basically be able to plan ways in which they can really invest more smartly in productive tools, strategies, and ways to make people feel engaged and have them really strive to do more with less. Yeah, so that is really my observation coming from all this.
In fact, I was about to ask one of the things which you already said. I mean, we're all very, I mean, in terms of the trends also, we have seen that the focus and extreme importance around profitability has increased across, especially in Asian markets. So in that point of view, you mentioned a couple of things like there's a clear emphasis on productivity, the clear emphasis on probably driving more efficiency. At the same time, of course, giving more flexibility to employees, probably be more flexible in terms of, in terms of the work, in terms of enabling them to sort of take certain decisions as such. But you mentioned something really interesting to enable your workforce with more productivity tools. So, is there any specific areas that you're looking? For example, is it purely on day-to-day activities, or is there anything over and beyond BAU that you're also emphasizing on?
Right. I think that is very pertinent to us. I think there are two ways, and you rightly pointed out, Shriram, that we need to look at it. One is BAU. I think in terms of BAU, things still need to run. There are also ways in which we can run more efficiently and more innovatively. So in the tools and technologies that we need to look at when it comes to really being able to drive additional gains from BAU processes are slightly different from that we are going to invest in terms of being able to build new ways to collaborate with each other, partner each other, and find new ways to really grow the business, right? So for the BAU portion, we typically look at how best we can actually really refine and simplify our processes through tools that help to automate how we do things. So things that are powered by very, very leading technologies like that in today's space, we all talk about AI powered tools, right? Will really help us be able to really cut down on unnecessary time spent on repetitive, monotonous tasks. But at the same time, we are also looking at how best we can actually start to really develop or devise very, very clear strategic roadmaps for how we are going to use our technology. Just to cite an example, for HR tech, for example, you would probably want to look at how you can have an integrated HR tech ecosystem that helps to drive and enable the HR outcomes or business outcomes that you are trying to drive, rather than try to really buy and purchase or rent the different types of HR tech out there and then figure out how to integrate that later. I think the lesser, the better in this sense for BAU tools. Now, for new types of innovative outcomes, we probably need to look at a little bit more experimentation, and that's when the whole team needs to be able to rally around how best they want to collaborate with each other, and tools that help us to really achieve that are those that really come from people having really true conversations about what drives them and what makes those behaviors stick before you go out and consider some of these tools and invest in them.
No, fair point. And I think, I mean, the business that you are in, you definitely are a new age org, and I'm sure the kind of employee base that you have today is more Gen Z, if I'm not mistaken. So definitely, the way you're talking about collaboration, definitely I can resonate how important, how key that is. So you also mentioned something around capability building, right? And that segues into my the next question. Today, when we look at the survey results, we have seen that around 60% plus CXOs have expressed prioritization of building organization capabilities within the org, and that is one of their top 3 priorities. But then they also have said that they're not well ready in terms of, or probably equipped with right tools or right information or right frameworks to sort of bring that up, because only we have seen around 25% of the respondents are feeling confident about making significant progress in building the capability. So if on that note, if I may ask you, right, what do you see, at Intrepid, is your key capabilities as an org capability? What do you see? What are those one or two things that you stand for? And today, where do you see your company is in that journey of building, the org capability? If you can shed some light on that.
Right. At I think at the risk of giving away what our unique competitive advantage is, I would just broadly state our organizational capabilities that we are really proud of and that we really stand for. And I think a lot of it has got to do with like the fact that our people are very much able to embrace digital agility and be able to really work with each other without any questions asked. And I think that's really underpinned by a very strong cultural commitment to get things done, right? So how do we actually enable this, and how do we actually make this stick within the organization? I think what we really did was we invested a lot in terms of like mentorship and coaching, and we have this very strong across the whole of the organization. We have a strong mentorship and coaching program in place where anyone can sign up for a coaching program or mentorship program from leaders to understand what are some of the key competencies and capabilities that will enable them to succeed in their roles and in the roles after that, right? Like, so if they were to progress, what do they need to get there, and how do they actually make sure they succeed in the new role? Beyond that, we also really invest a lot in continuous learning and development. So to that end, at Intrepid, we have established what we call an in-house university. We call it Intrepid University, where we actually offer a variety of training programs, workshops, and crowdsourced learning resources that are actually crowdsourced not just from our employees, but also from our partners. I'm talking about partners that we work with, business clients, as well as stakeholders in the supply chain organizations that we work with, as well as the marketplace platforms. So we find ways in which we really have our employees just pursue new ways to learn, relearn and unlearn, and then at the same time, then start to transmit those learnings to the rest of the organization. So last but not least, all this learning does not really helped to really drive success for the organization in terms of business outcomes if you are not able to translate that into practice. So a lot of what we do is we actually put people in together. We actually put together quizzes, and we actually have learning sessions for people to really share their learning outcomes. And then at the same time, start to identify trainers who are passionate about really being able to take charge of developing materials to pass to the next generation of learners. All this is really supported by our succession planning process. We have a process where we identify potential leaders and then prepare them for critical roles. And one of the things that we look at is how many of these people actually plan for succession are good learners and good trainers. So we look for such learning capabilities within our leaders, and we consider them in really planning for the next moves in the organization.
Interesting. And I mean, I've seen very seldom I've heard digital agility being prioritized. And I think I can surely correlate in today's era, where, efficiency and faster way to get things done and ability of individuals to be able to use technology has become even more important. Now, and it's very interesting where you said that you sort of enabling this capability through a very rigorous and very focused learning based approach. And it's very interesting to also see that employees can actually go ahead and book a half an hour or a 1 hour slot with the leaders to sort of do those conversations. It's really powerful, as I see. But in terms of looking at the entire view of being, say, if I stitch back to my first question, being more profitable, of course we looked at points around being more productive, more efficient, as such. We also have seen that other than just being focused on efficiency and productivity, we also have seen that there is also more emphasis, or there's more interest in terms of enabling the line managers, right? The first hand supervisors. How important are they in your organization in terms of driving any sort of HR transformation related changes? And if I have to tie it back to even the productivity parameter as well, how important is your supervisor in the org in terms of driving? Because a lot of times there's also a saying, right? Most of the times the line manager is the HR for the employee most of the times, right? And it's also most of our queries or anything that the go-to person is always line manager. So how do you see line managers empowerment in your company, and how important they are in terms of driving any sort of HR transformation?
Yeah, I think absolutely crucial for us to it's absolutely crucial for us to actually consider line managers or supervisors to be that not just the first line of defense in the event that a contingent scenario arises that is adverse, right? But really looking at them as enablers, as people whom we can lean on to communicate the right behaviors, and to also be able to lead by example and be able to stay consistent with the organizational agenda, so to speak. So if the organizational agenda or outcome that we are trying to drive is that of profitability and productivity, then line managers need to be that first really port of call for everybody else to be able to be fully impressed of the importance and also how it can actually be baked into day-to-day processes. Because line manager has that ability to be very credible and to be able to lend themselves to really very practical ways that they can impart to be able to apply themselves in a way that is practical to the day-to-day employee as to how they can actually effect change. So what we do really within an organization is we look at in terms of any kind of change initiative, we actually consider not just the senior leaders, but we also look at the kind of messaging that needs to cascade down to the head of departments, country managers or directors, all the way down to line managers. And for line managers, actually, they are not considered the last target group or audience that we reach out to. Oftentimes, they are one of the first few that we consider in terms of really devising any kind of training resources around how we want to be able to train managers to empower their employees. So that's one. And second, in terms of communications, I think there is a very, very important linkage between line managers and their head of departments or their different functional heads that they report into, to be able to get that alignment. And that's what we seek to do. And within our space for our organization, what we always do is we actually have a series of step training, we call that, or layered training, where anytime a new line manager is appointed, be it someone who is a first-time manager or someone who is just promoted into the role, we actually conduct that training together with refresher training for the head of departments to ensure that both parties are aligned as to the expectations of them from the organization's standpoint, as well as from the employee standpoint. So we do two lenses so that they themselves can put themselves in the shoes of how they can marry the perspectives of both employees that they're managing, as well as the views of the organization or the leaders. Yeah.
That's amazing to hear that, because you mentioned pretty interesting part where you said line managers are not the afterthought, or at least the last thought. You basically ensuring that they are part of each and any initiative that you take up, and they're actually one of the first people to get access and also get access to information, get access to way forward as well. So that's very interesting. But if I have to look at the changing priorities from the survey point of view, right? We have seen that line manager empowerment is definitely one. And alongside with that, there's also another very interesting and important trend that has surfaced is the experience for the end user, which is the employee experience, right? So in that context, if I have to ask you, in your organization, how has been the journey in terms of changing HR transformation priorities? Because we've seen that the HR transformation priorities, for example, just 2 years back, or when we hit the pandemic, it was more to sort of having that contingency plan, having those ready to work tools from anywhere, right? So some of those became priority. But if you look at from a larger spectrum in the last 3 to 4 years and the way forward, where do you see the HR transformation related priorities are shifting from your point of view in your organization?
Right. I would say that if I were to really take a very broad look across the horizons, I would say the priorities would shift a lot more towards really preparing people to be ready for change, and change it being the only constant, owing to the fact that organizations are undergoing really uncharted territory, so to speak. Every single organization is facing a form of reckoning. Business models are being challenged, are being refined. And I think similar to what a lot of organizations are going through, we have gone through and we are continuing to go through a change journey, right? Where for Intrepid, we blitzskilled from a startup 7 years ago all the way to a scale up about 3 to 4 years ago. And then last year we got acquired right before the tech winter happened. So we are now part of an MNC, right? Owned by a listed company in the UK called Essential. So I think alongside that, organizational structures and business models may change. The people, processes, and policies that everyone is accustomed to will definitely need to be adapted. And more so than anything, I would say the people that we work with and the customs that they adopt will really need to be something that people need to really be able to adapt to very well. So just to cite an example, a lot of companies in China, in Japan, Korea, post-pandemic, they've started to expand a lot more into Southeast Asia, right? So we start to see a lot more shift in centers where labor is really focused on, or where labor is hired into. So you start to see a lot more representation in certain geographical sectors versus others, for example. But alongside that, there are implications as to cultural intelligence. Are people really, really prepared to be able to relate to and work with and collaborate with others from a different culture? I think this is really representing an opportunity for many practitioners and many leaders to be able to say, hey, look, as we are changing, there are things that we need to prepare the ground for. And this is what we need to do. Education, constant communication, transparency, and being honest about your change journey, so that people are able to follow through and be able to really dial into every single thing you're saying, and with conviction at that.
Yeah, really nice to hear that. So in terms of what we have seen as while experience is managing experience for employees is absolutely becoming more critical, but at the same time, the agility in the organization, right? The agility factors within the organization is also becoming more important, given the lead times have come down, and for anything and everything that we do, the outcomes are expected to be much faster, and even our product life cycles or our turnaround times have come down drastically, to at least, even if I compare 3 to 4 years back to now, I think we are working in a pace which is unprecedented. And we also are looking at a real work life integration. We are experiencing that today in reality. I mean, to be honest with you, like couple of years up until before COVID, for me, the work life integration used to sound like some term which I've never experienced. But today, in each and everything that I do, I experience that. I mean, I'm at work, I'm also at my home, and I'm living both, but it's truly integrated, right? So in that context, we're looking at ensuring that employees experience is top notch, so that they're happy, they get all that they want. They every moment, you've spoken about first time managers, those moments are important for them, and you need to sort of give that right experience for them so that they are enabled well, and they can take off. Um, but on the agility side, right? What is it that you are because our report, our findings say that agility plus experience, both combined, can give you up to 2x returns, right? And we have seen that CXOs, on a whopping 78%, people believe in that in today's context. So, I'd like to understand in your organization, and also what are your thoughts around it, and is there any specific intervention that you're doing? Any if you can share any such examples from your organization where you have been. I mean, we have looked at on the experience part, on the agility part, if you can share some examples, or how are you looking at it?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Where experience definitely helps to accelerate what you already have, which is the agility. If you possess it or you have sharpened it, of course, agility can be continuously refined, but the experience helps you get more and more agile. And I think combined together, for sure, they would be able to really amplify business outcomes. So it's no surprise to me that that's the case. In our context, right? What really came to mind when we talk about this is the fact that agile work practices are very much something that we need to institute and really live on a day-to-day basis. It becomes something that is second nature to us. And we do that over here as well, like in my company, where we look at really setting up cross-functional teams to drive business outcomes. So to set an example, right before we get into any new initiative, such as, say, on a rebranding initiative, recently, out of the 11 companies that my parent company is basically managing. So Intrepid is one of them. We have just been acquired by them. The 11 of us, we are actually merging into one company. So of these 11 companies that are coming into one, we have this new initiative called a rebranding initiative, and it's a huge or major organizational change initiative, right? Requiring many different work streams, different stakeholders. So one of the things that we did at the very, very beginning was to consider how we need to set up the ways in which we will work together, and what are these ways of work rules and conditions that all of us will abide by. So all this presents the preconditions for us to be agile later, and we make sure we were intentional about setting them first. So the cross-functional teams that we then start to build was something that really crossed not just time zones, but also different businesses, to make sure we are as inclusive as possible, and we do not leave any stones unturned in the way we iterate and work together. So the second factor that really helps to contribute to this agile work practice would be iterative work cycles. So what do we do there? We actually have like very clear cadences that we follow up on, and we establish whether or not something calls for a meeting, or whether something calls for just a project status update on a tool like Asana, right? So we do not really just clutter our entire day with non-stop meetings, leaving us with no time to really act on any of the things that were raised during meetings. So we kept it really, really productive. Every single meeting had its meeting call-outs, has its agenda before the meeting. At the end of it, there are follow-ups that are clearly actionable, right? And then the third factor that really, really helps in this is regular feedback loops. So this is whereby right across the entire agility, the agile work practice cycle, you would need to look at how best you can actually weave in different moments or touch points where people can provide regular feedback. And this allows you to get the flexibility to speed up decision making and also enable you to really be very responsive to any change. So much so that everyone gets very clued into the idea without being reminded all the time that change is the only constant. So, and that in itself is very much symbolic of what we are talking about when we say agility, which is you embrace the notion that change is the only constant and you roll with it.
Absolutely, very interesting points, and I'm actually stuck on one point which you made. So basically, it's seen that governance is an opposite to agility. Typically, that's where we find ourselves in. The more the governance, more the checkpoints, we find ourselves, sort of planning to work, but not really acting on work. So in that sense, when you mention, and we in the recent times, I've seen like Asana or Read.ai, we have many tools who can actually tell us, hey, for this conversation, you don't need a meeting. It can just be an email is good enough for this, or probably figure out a better time to do that, where most of the people can be in the at best in their collaboration. So sometime in the morning, so there are recommendations of when the meeting can be done, what type of meeting can be done in a certain time of the day. So there are very clear tools also today available for us to help us with this. But as per you, when you sort of measure agility, how do you measure agility in your org? Like, are there any clear metrics? I mean, you have spoken about feedback, you've spoken about iterative loops, follow-ups, and establishing ways of work. I understand that there's clear process, but how do you measure whether if you're agile enough or you need to catch up?
Right. I think as with all types of metrics, there are leading and lagging indicators. For us, at the end of the day, what we are really obsessed about here at Intrepid and Essential is really the business results. So we look at it in terms of whether we were able to really hit things like the SLAs required of us by clients, by business partners, or internal stakeholders. We also look at the SLAs, the progress of SLAs, whether they have actually improved over time, because we do not want to really stay stagnant or be static. So that is another way in which we look at agility. But also, before we start out with anything that's new, we look at whether something some of the practices or ways of work that we have established earlier on, whether that in itself has actually been iterated, right? Because if it hasn't, yet the workload seems to be growing, then over time you'll realize that there are concerns about engagement and burnout, and those things start to become different types of indicators that let us understand whether or not we are agile enough. And that's where we will go back to the initial basis of or ways of work. Did it actually iterate, did it progress to keep pace with the needs of the project or the initiative? And also we look at productivity. So things like the cost, right, of labor, right? And this cost of labor that is spread out across different types of parameters, right? We talk about it in terms of geographic teams, in terms of functional teams, and in terms of project teams as well. So how do they actually compare across time? So usually for measures of agility, we look at it across a time series, and we then consider how best we need to really intervene. But apart from that, qualitatively, we also ask ourselves the very, very honest questions of like, do we feel like we are agile enough? So from time to time, we do actually do straw polls with our leadership team to ask them, hey, do we think we are agile enough? In what ways and not? How can we improve? And similarly, we ask of team members the same from time to time in our pulse surveys. Yeah.
Interesting. So, so basically, you're saying you're going to look at, and I think from the answer that you gave right now, and my understanding is it also aligns to your organization OKRs, or key metrics as an org that you are also tracking, if I'm not mistaken. So
Right.
the points we've spoken about, service SLAs or such, so as well as your productivity metrics around lead and lag indicators both. And also interestingly, you're saying that you have those check-ins or checkpoints where you go back, ask yourself whether you're agile enough, or what you can do more, probably what's not visible out in the data, but what's the feel like, right? So
Yes.
that's pretty interesting. And I think what we have also observed, Alex, is while talking to, so also in the survey and also talking to other HR leaders, what they have constantly said is today they have less metrics in place in terms of measuring agility in the org, because some of the organizations are pretty governed by regulations, so there are more governance checkpoints, so they are coming from different type of industries, different setups. They're also boggled down in terms of compliances, regulatory related requirements, and also taller hierarchies, sometimes red tape, and various other reasons. So one of the things that definitely most of them resonated is that the leverage of technology, right? The usage or the leverage of technology, especially by the HR team in the company, can actually bring or be that force of change for the organization. So the HR can really be that change agent to drive some of the outcomes that we are trying to achieve, be it agility, be it more experience led, be it empowering managers, eventually making it more of a profitable, more capability driven organization, right? So in your in your experience, and also right now, you've been in Intrepid for about 7 years, and now you're experiencing more changes with the merger, and you're also having a lot of more interesting exercises happening. So at this moment, where do you see, for example, especially the HR team, your HR team, embracing the technology to drive some of these key outcomes?
Right. I think there is a fundamental need for the HR team to be ready for any type of technology that we are going to adopt. And I think that speaks a lot to what we have spent a bit of time talking about, which is being able to prepare themselves for change. So beyond that, I think it's also the fact that we need to be technically grounded and also be technically ready for the change. The reality is that not every single HR person is ready to really embrace and accept and really be able to roll along very well with new tech. So some will struggle to use the new technology effectively, especially without proper training and support. Some might just give up, or they will default back to what they are comfortable with, which is really going against the whole grain of change. So all these necessitate a look at whether or not the tech in itself is simple enough to use and is simple enough for the capabilities of our current team. And that's what I think we always, at least for myself, like I always seek out to understand in terms of the training and support resources available by any tech vendor before I look into purchasing or leveraging the technology, right? I also think that where we stand, there's an important point to be said about the need for us to really match the technology according to the business needs. So sometimes it can be as simple as certain technology just doesn't work in certain region. Just to cite an example, for the purposes of recruitment tech, right? We have ATSs. There are some ATSs that just simply do not work in China, and we have a business arm in China, right? So they are their own world, right? And some don't work as well in Japan, for instance. So we need to then be able to really adapt and understand the cultural elements that underpin the business needs for each region, but also the greater question about what does the business want to achieve. So certain tech may lend itself better to integration with what finance may need or what supply chain or procurement may need, but may not actually suit HR as well. How do you actually really balance that trade-off, right? I think also the resistance to change part is important for us to take note of because of the fact that beyond our immediate team in HR, there are other partners that we work with, business leaders that we work with. They themselves may have to actually really embark on some of these change processes. So how do we actually communicate and convince them of the benefits of the technology? And one of the things that we need to do is really be able to champion being the pilot testers ourselves and to be able to get very comfortable with using technology so that we in itself are seen as very credible change agents who are in a position to give feedback and improvement. So these things combined are very important. But beyond anything, I think there's a very clear thing, a clear factor to consider when it comes to technology, which is cost constraints. I think increasingly a lot of people are always, and I think it's a perennial challenge as well, but increasingly so than any time in recent history, do we actually really hear from a lot of HR leaders saying that, hey, this tech piece is too expensive, it's not for us, right? How do we actually really translate the tech that we are looking to integrate and present it as a clear investment case to the management to be able to convince them that this is something that drives long-term efficiency and agility across the organization? One of the things that we really need to look at a little bit more into is like total cost of ownership models that are a lot more supplemental to what people look at within the immediate space of like 1 or 2 years horizon of just what the upfront cost of owning a piece of technology is, and then also highlight other really good positive external benefits that come alongside using that piece of technology. So all these things will help you really be able to enable business leaders understand the criticality of like tech in enabling the business.
Absolutely, and I think I definitely correlate with many points that you've spoken about, and some of the barriers you've spoken about, like ensuring the change is smooth, and there are nuances of cross-country or cultural aspects in tech, and that needs to be looked into, and integration. So what is the trade-off that you're looking at? Yes, you want to have a technology that can serve well for HR related aspects, but how do you balance it out with other expectations in terms of interfaces with finance and supply chain, etc. And most importantly, what you've said in the end really resonate well, and of course has been one of the key highlights as well by many of the CXOs as well, is increasingly the leadership, the boards are looking at, even the HR tech is no more a sort of exception to business cases or investment proposals, right? So it needs to be put in a way that whatever investments that you're that you're doing in a people tech would actually you can realize the value over a horizon of next 3 to 5 years, and then can also clearly articulate which are the areas that you are really betting on, what capabilities can be sort of grown with the investment in this technology. So I think in terms of having that in place, definitely, as I can see that more people, more leaders and board members get onboarded with the idea of investing in new tech, especially on the part that where you said increasingly the HR tech has become more expensive, and it is actually becoming expensive. But a lot of customers, when we spoke to, what we understand also is, they when they look at the cost, of course they see that it's expensive, but then when they look at what is the capability that the system is offering, and then when they look back, marry that with their processes where they can leverage value out, and then if they can establish clear outcomes, right? So they have seen actually multifold returns on the investments that they're giving. I mean, not exactly in terms of profits per se, but improved employee experience, productivity, and probably enabling employees to do tasks more faster than before, saving more productive time than losing out time on some transactional work, and also leveraging AI. You also spoke about, how can we leverage AI in our work so that we can actually do away with some of the things with just the help of AI. It could be probably when you are hiring, maybe the AI can help you with what are the top candidates that you can quickly look at instead of looking at all the 50 odd applicants and CVs, right? It could be as simple as that. So leveraging AI in your succession pipes to various other capability building exercises internally. So all that put together, we've seen, once they look at the capabilities, they see, yes, the value over a period of time, 3 to 5 years on a TCO model, looks pretty impressive. That's what we have seen, and definitely it resonates. Your thoughts resonates, and also sort of some are really interesting. Some are resonating as well in terms of what we have found, and I think that more or less concludes various questions that we have and want to understand from you. However, is there anything else that you'd like to share before we end the call and end our conversation? In terms of say, for example, today you already got acquired, and is there any specific investments you're looking at in technology, and if there's anything as such, would like to happy to understand that.
Right. I think where we stand today is a very exciting time because for the first time ever, we'll be building a global people experience roadmap alongside our integration into one global company comprising about 3,000 people across the globe. So it's exciting times in the sense that all of us have to look at ways in which we can integrate whilst at the same time maintaining compliance across the different regions. So earlier on, I think we spoke about tech being also a piece that is very important in any leader's tool to enable us to be agile, to achieve agility. But also, I think it's important to not overlook the fact that tech is also very critical to shaping a very positive employee and candidate experience. So that is what we are setting out to do as we integrate into one global company, in which we are starting to look at how best we can create an integrated global HR tech strategy that spans the entire employee experience, looking at different touch points, yet at the same time be compliant. So it's really, really exciting what we can come up with. I just want to be able to share with everybody that the journey itself is definitely going to be one that is very daunting because there are so many things that that sort of just come across as overwhelming. It's a bit much, excessive, but importantly, we have a very strong and growing HR community and tech community, especially. And I also really thank People Matters for being part of that drive to help all of us learn best practices from each other. And I think being able to just dial into everything that similar some other people from across the other part of the world would have experienced will really help you, because we all have our own unique journeys and stories to tell. I can't wait to experience what it's like for my company and be able to share that in due course. But in the meantime, if I would like to get any kind of insights from similar folks who have gone through such journeys as well, I'm also happy to hear from you.
Absolutely, Alex, and it's pleasure talking to you, and definitely would like to, happy to share our findings as well as part of our research, and what companies of similar scale and similar industry, how they are, how they have shaped up, what their priorities are. Happy to share that as part of our research. And we are more interested also, as a follow-up, would like to understand the mammoth exercise that you're undergoing right now, how it sort of transformed into, and I would like to hear that success story sometime later as well. Thank you so much, Alex, and really appreciate your time. Thanks for connecting.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me here. It's my honor, and thank you once again for publishing this. I can't wait to see what the outcome is going to be. See all of you.
Thank you so much, Alex, and thank you, Sriram, for having this interesting conversation and sharing all those wonderful insights. For everyone who's been watching this interview, thank you for tuning in and encouraging us to become better with every episode. This is also your reminder to get a copy of the HR Evolution Perspectives 2023 Empower and Evolve study. All you have to do is to click on the link provided below this interview to download the copy. And if you want more details on how to automate day-to-day HR processes, steps to simplify human interactions, and getting actionable insights to build better workplaces, you can also visit www.darwinbox.com. That's all in today's episode. Stay tuned as we bring another insightful discussion on HR Evolution Perspectives 2023 Experts Take and deliberate on solutions with the top talent leaders in the region. Thank you and have a good day, everyone.